Hello.
What's up? Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. It has
Yeah.
been a busy series of weeks and weekends for us since the last
Has it been
live
longer
stream.
than 2 weeks?
No, it's been a regular 2 weeks.
Wow, it was a packed 2 weeks.
We did a lot in the last 2 weeks.
Yes,
How's
we
everyone
did.
doing? What's up, guys? Audio is good. Thank you, Tim. Oh, Tim, the last live stream you could tune into for a while.
We'll miss you, but we
understand.
always appreciate that you join so much, and we know you've got a busy.
Tim's
First
got
few
a
parts.
busy season coming up. I should say we're referring to our friend Tim, who is storming thrills. So
Yeah,
I'm not
and
calling
he's not
myself
calling
my own best
himself
friend. It's been a good time. Yes, definitely does feel like more than 2 weeks. If you had been us,
Yeah.
we have been going crazy. Blair was the first one on the stream. You get the prize tonight, Blair.
Let be known.
I think you may have even beaten us in, to be honest.
I think you might have.
were
We
cutting
were
in
low.
pretty close, getting in front of
Barely
the
made
TV.
it.
Or not the TV, in front of the computer.
We're doing great.
Yep, it's going to be that kind of night. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Anyone who is watching this later on, we're going to be talking tonight about something that has proved to be divisive in the past. But we've decided to niche it out to make it a little less divisive.
I think if you ask me tomorrow what my top 10 theme coasters were, I might change my mind slightly. Not necessarily with the ones I picked, but I think the order. But I'm going to be real. Tim asked me yesterday for my rankings as soon as possible, so I did it as soon as possible. And then
as soon
I
as
was
they
like,
were in, she
boom.
was like, I regret it.
And then you started doing yours last night, and I was like, hey, you told me to do them as soon as possible.
You take longer than I do
I
to
would
put
have
lists
taken
together.
my time.
You take longer than I do to put lists together. I need to be able to build a PowerPoint today.
So, anyway.
So tonight, guys, we are talking about our top 10 themed coaster credits.
Yeah.
Because we've already done our top 10 coaster credits. And here's the thing. When we did our top 10 coaster credits, talking about roller coasters, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know what coaster credits are off the top of their heads.
Yeah.
For anyone who wasn't present when we were doing our original roller coaster rankings, we were like, we really, like, theming plays such a huge role in, like, the whole package of our roller coaster rankings. And we were talking amongst ourselves as we were building our list, and we were like, if I was ranking solely on theming, or if I weighted theming differently, like if I put my heart and soul into theming, this would be a completely different list. So we talked about last week what we thought were like the best all-around rides and the best like ride experiences in our top 10 coasters. And this time around, actually it wasn't last week, it was several weeks ago.
Yeah, it was.
We didn't do this one right after the other.
Yeah, it was a couple live streams ago.
Hey, Kaylee.
Welcome, Kaylee.
Welcome, Kaylee. Always good to see you. Okay, so Blair, don't sweat it, man.
Yeah.
You're
we
good.
appreciate any time.
You're good. It's always going to be chaotic on these streams.
Yeah.
No one has to be here on time.
Yep.
All right. Well, some of its parts. We decided we were going to do a live stream specifically for themed coasters. And when we say theming, you had specific qualifiers.
Yeah.
Tell me your qualifiers, because I really didn't dive deep.
I thought that was. Are we gonna do that now or do that later on?
We can do it now.
Okay.
Because the considerations that I laid out are different.
Oh, okay. Well, I had to think about like, okay, is the queue line, like there were 3 things that had to like check the boxes. Is the queue line themed? Number 1. Is there, elements of the ride itself themed, and how much is that carried out through the majority of the ride? And then is it a fun ride? It can be themed, and if it's a really, really bad ride, then it's probably not going to be on my list. But does it have fun coaster elements? Doesn't have to mean inversions. It can, a lot of these on my list don't have inversions actually, but it can be, does it have a drop track? Does it launch? Does it, we'll get to it. I guess we'll talk about that. So those were the things that
I don't know what you were going to say.
I was doing the thing where the
thing.
The thing.
I got you, the thing.
Where the track goes, wee.
Tilt track?
Yeah, tilting. That's the word I was looking for. So those were my things that helped me, because on our list of like 161 coasters that we've done or something like
166.
that. Oh, and I do. There's definitely some S-bends.
There's a lot of S-bends
in these rides. When I was thinking about,
Tim also said he made 2 lists: one for theme coasters he's ridden, and one for the ones he hasn't. Which, if I had made that list, believe you me, completely different.
Yeah,
lists.
There'd be a lot. There'd be a lot we haven't written on there. Oh, I didn't. This was kind of like an extra thing, but like, is there music and on-ride soundtrack, kind of stuff like that? Because that's definitely part of the theming too, which I guess we'll talk about.
Yes.
When we talk about our individual
rides. Let's dive into this, because it's gonna be it's not gonna be a long presentation, but I do have a lot of defending to do for my top 10.
Anyway, I'm not gonna
we'll get to it.
I don't think I'm gonna fight you on why certain rides. I have a couple comments on some of your rides and why they didn't make my list at all.
I have a couple comments on some of your rides and why they didn't make my list at all.
But overall, I don't think you chose bad rides.
Okay, so as usual, we're gonna shout out our socials: The Real Tim and Katie on Instagram and Threads, Tim and Katie on Facebook, and timandkt.net is our website, which is at this time almost completely fully caught up.
We're only missing one blog post.
Put an asterisk on that and hope that we can keep our word on getting rid of the almost. I will do a very, very quick plug, because it's our channel. We can do what we want. That we are less than 50 subscribers away from a major milestone. Y'all won't be able to tell that by looking at our channel, because it doesn't do the 0.000 whatever percentage it would be. But we would really appreciate anyone who is watching and enjoying this going ahead and hitting that subscribe button, because we are very, very close to 2,000 subscriber milestone. And that'll be big for us, because that allows us to do a little bit more networking. There's power in numbers and being able to interact with businesses and market ourselves a little bit better. And we would love to be able to do that and have our season is already very, very busy for haunts and theme parks. Don't get me wrong. We have some thoughts about where we'd want to go and who we'd want to work with and what we want to do if we hit a certain level. So,
and if you're already subscribed, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
We love each and every one of you, and we so appreciate all the support. And anyone who is watching this on the replay, whether you're in the US or not, we super appreciate your support. And honestly, especially if you're not in the US and you don't get to go to some of these places that we go to all the time, which is kind of the point of our vlogs, is to help people connect with things that they don't normally get to do or they wouldn't otherwise see or do, and show them what they could be doing. So we appreciate all of you out there. Coaster Mom! Good evening.
Good evening, Coaster Mom. Thanks for jumping on.
I'm still practicing Dutch. Anyway.
Should we answer Kaylee's question?
What was Kaylee's question?
It's right I didn't see. Does Mako or Candemonium?
Oh, fun. Yes. So
I would say
I argue yes for both.
Yeah, but to me they're theme light. Candemonium, the fact that it does. Yes, dear. I see the Candemonium.
Candemonium.
It has some
It has
themed
theming
elements. It does have like the coaster trains that are themed to like different candy bars.
It has a queue theme. It has a naming convention theme. It does not have. I don't know what music you would
I would
add
give
to
it
to
like
make it
a
a
2
theme
out of
coaster.
10 for theming. If 10 is like, if
come on,
come on, what?
What is Storm Runner?
1 out of 10.
No, Storm Runner is probably a 3 out of 10 on the
On theming,
horse theming.
all they do is have a picture of a horse.
And you said we weren't going to bicker.
Well, spoiler alert, neither Candemonium nor...
It's true.
I was about to say
neither
Storming
Candemonium
Thrills.
nor Mako is on our list.
All right.
But hey, Coaster Mom says theming light. Yeah. I'm on board with theming light. I just think a 2 out of 10 is a little bit low.
Yeah, but
for
when
the
you
amount of-
compare Candemonium to Hagrid's or The Mummy, where it's like dark rides and scenes and animatronics.
I think it's apples to oranges though, because how the heck are you gonna mount Hershey Kisses along the way of Candemonium, or like how are you gonna do that? Anyway, I feel like it is too much to ask of a Hershey Park branded hyper coaster.
I mean,
to
they
have
added
that much.
theming to Loch Ness Monster.
We'll get to all of that. Actually, that's actually not a bad transition. So let's real quick before we dive into our actual theming discussion, which as we can tell is going to be a longer one. Let's talk about our theme park news. So we usually do this at the beginning of the live streams for those who are new to the channel. For those who are not new to the channel, you'll know this is the part where we get stuck for 45 minutes. We're going to try to be quicker than that. We're going to try to be quicker than that.
I didn't even know this. I had to ask
Oh yeah,
you
this was announced today. This was announced like today. Like as I was building a PowerPoint, I was going through all the theme park news and I was like, oh. So some of you will know that Six Flags Qiddiya City, which is way over in the Emirates, it's not the first international Six Flags park, but it is the largest by far for Six Flags park to be built overseas. And it's also going to be the first Six Flags parks in the Emirates, or Cedar Flags? What's the hybrid we call it? It's a combination company now. Well, today...
It's going to have the Six Flags name.
Today, they already are going to have like worldwide record-breaking coasters, right? The tallest, fastest, whatevers. But today they announced they're also going to be building one of the largest water parks in the world, in addition to Six Flags Qiddiya City. So that probably has been being worked on for quite some time. And I don't know actually if it's going to be opening at around the same time as Qiddiya City, because work is well underway for Qiddiya City. But for this, which I believe is called Aquarabia, is the official title. Cool, yeah, I like it. This is going to be huge, and it's going to be exceedingly well themed, unlike I would argue most of the Six Flags parks all over the world. This one is going to have rock work. It's going to have, it's going to be Volcano Bay of the Emirates, basically, is what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looks like.
It's been shaping up to look like that.
You have other pictures, right?
I have 2.
Oh, well, that you can kind of see like the mountains and stuff.
Yeah, well, the mountain, that's part of the actual landscape.
No, but you can see like where like the...
Yeah, rock work.
Where this park is going to be. And kind of the natural, what it offers like naturally in terms of views and stuff like that.
Yes, it is going to be, it's going to be, first of all, it's going to be a while before we ever make it out to the Emirates, but it is going to be one heck of a cool park. Just all the way around. And the extension into a water park is set to be basically one of the
I'm
huge
kind of
people
surprised
eaters.
it's outdoors.
It's going to be hot.
A lot of those water parks in like these countries are, because they're in the desert.
Yeah, but they do have the...
There's a lot of greenery out there.
There's a lot of greenery, but it's all like palm tree greenery.
Maybe I'm wrong about...
There's also like the Aquaventure Park, the Atlantis Aquaventure, which we've seen Sean and Charlie go to before.
Where's that SeaWorld park that was like super rad?
Also there, but indoors. That's all indoors.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I was like kind of surprised.
That I think is more about like conservationist efforts though, because it's part theme park and part zoo.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
This is going to be very much not that. This is going to be all water park. It is going to use an incredible amount of water per day, but it's also going to...
Oh, didn't even think about that.
I hesitate to use the word recycle because I feel like that sends the wrong message, but they are going to be, they're going to be leveraging, as with most water parks nowadays, they're going to be deploying certain tactics to Recycle is the only thing that's coming to mind.
Reduce waste.
It sounds like you're swimming in pee when I say that, but that's not what I mean. I don't know how it all works. You can tell, though, we've got water coasters, water slides, body slides, wave pools. We got pretty much everything that a typical water park will have, except most of them are going to be record-breaking for the area. Yeah, tallest, fastest, whatever. Well, this is Qiddiya City. So this is how the whole thing looks with the water park expansion included. And you can see in the background, there's Falcon's Flight as the tall, that big arch.
Top hat?
Top hat. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, top hat. So
we have comments that might be helpful. I'm seeing them on my phone here.
Refiltered! Yes, thank you, Tim. Now we're not swimming in pee anymore.
I don't know. Kind of sounds like you might still be.
Blair says, really wants to go to Six Flags, but too far away. He's going to Florida this summer. Well, Blair, a lot of the rides we're going to talk about today are in Florida.
So hopefully you get excited about it.
You will be able to experience some things that Six Flags honestly just can't match. However, having said that, I believe that Tim from Storming Thrills just this past weekend went to Six Flags Great Adventure. And I'm hearing that it was a pretty good trip.
Oh, well, that's good.
There's quite a few things at Six Flags Great Adventure. The last time we went was in 2020, which at this point, decades ago, in terms of like what we've accomplished since. And what the park has accomplished, they've built two new coasters, and one of them was closed when we were there. So the the Joker flipper. So we're missing 3 credits. Was rainy. Oh no,
that's a bummer.
But he did say he got to go on El Toro. So.
Oh, good.
I'm King Ka.
Oh wow, that must have hurt. All that rain flying into your eyes.
We'll try to hurry on to the good stuff, Blair. The nice thing about the live streams is that you can always catch them tomorrow if you need to.
Yeah. You want to rewatch?
Nobody feel compelled to stick around if you have to be somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Six Flags Qiddiya City and Aquarabia, which was exciting news for the theme park community at large. Locally, closer to home, although not quite as close to our home, is the Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift roller coaster that is going to be opening at Universal Studios Hollywood. The actual ride is not news. We knew that was going to happen. We also knew that it was going to have roughly this layout, and we knew that it was under construction. So none of that is news. What is news is that we officially have an opening time frame. We were expecting 2025, give or take, at the rate that they were progressing.
2026 now,
It's
right?
2026.
Yeah.
So they have officially announced that it's going to be 2026 for Hollywood Drift. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are building on top of active attractions, including the tram tour. So without having to shut down things, they're moving at a slower pace. And also testing is going to require like neighborhood sound ordinances.
Yeah, it's also a new kind of ride mechanism for Universal. I'm not saying it's not ever been done before, but it's not one of those things
power
where they're
slide
just like
coasters
copying
around
and pasting.
Yep.
So
Yep. It's all new tech. Oh, it's not new technology, but it's definitely new the way they're using it. Yeah. It's going to be, from what we've heard, it's going to be a little bit more similar to, I would say, Cosmic Rewind. No reverse launch, but it is going to be doing the tilting and turning at certain story points along the coaster.
I think like control. I wouldn't call it like a spinner. I think Tim was saying, is that the spinner?
It does technically spin, but it doesn't spin freeform. It has controlled spinning at certain points.
Yeah, it's supposed to mimic drifting in a car.
It is literally supposed to be themed to the Tokyo Drift film.
Yeah.
Which is the least popular of all the Fast and Furious.
But at least it's not a bus tour.
I'm waiting for what's his name, Lucas Black, to be around the corner.
Oh, that guy!
You're the new DK.
Alabama.
Alabama.
Sorry, Kaylee. we have a. Bad
You gotta see Tokyo Drift to know what that in joke is. JVH, welcome.
Hi, long time.
It feels
like it's been a long time.
JVH is also living in Florida nowadays, living his best life.
Hope so.
Knobles! I will say,
Knobles
has some glorious, glorious rides, including a lot of dark rides that are near and dear to our hearts. They do not have a ton of themed attractions. Haunted Mansion is a Haunted Mansion theme, and Black Diamond is a Black Diamond.
Yeah,
but
besides their like dark rides. Yeah.
Yeah. But great rides all
But
around.
it's a great
park.
like park all around, the atmosphere and stuff.
Cobra's Curse.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of probably similar.
I will spoil one more thing and say that Cobra's Curse is not on my top 10, but it very nearly made my top 10. Like I went through 166 credits that we had, and it was in the top 15 for theming, but it did not make the top 10 cutoff. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. So, one last piece of theme park news for today.
Yay!
And I didn't put a ton of stuff in about this because it's kind of Fantasy Springs stuff has kind of been just like dropping out, like leaking out for the past couple of weeks.
Dropped official footage of the Tangled
the teeny tiniest amount of footage for the Tangled
enough for everyone to just freak out, including me. So this is all I want, just like to live the lantern scene from Tangled. And I have to go to Tokyo to do it.
No, it's a long way to go for one.
I mean, I want to go to Tokyo.
Fantasy Springs is going to be...
I want to go for so much more than one attraction. But this is like The Lion King and Tangled are my top 2 Disney IPs. So I gotta live this.
There have been some rumors that The Lion King is going to be getting its own attraction at Disneyland Paris. And not the live-action Lion King.
It better not be.
Which, however you feel about that, it's not our thing. Live action remakes in general are not our thing. There are a couple that have been pretty decent, and there are some that have just been unnecessary. But I'd
argue all are unnecessary.
All are technically unnecessary.
That will stay on.
But the Lion King the early '90s original 93. Lion King will be supposedly a centerpiece attraction in Disneyland Paris at some point. So in the meantime, all eyes on Fantasy Springs at Tokyo Disney Sea, because we're going to have Peter Pan, we're going to have Tangled, we're going to have Frozen. Is that it? I think that's it. But it's a lot. It's a lot for the area. And this is this is the first of its kind type attraction. And it's honestly like when we did a live stream way back when about like what kind of rides we would do if we were Imagineers. This is almost exactly down to the the details, like what Katie had envisioned for her go-to
I said the Mog Rides boat that moves.
And that's what it's going to be.
This. Yep.
It's going to be exactly this.
Yep.
So pretty cool. Fantasy Springs does open later this summer in Tokyo Disney Sea. We will obviously not be there for that, much as we might like to be. I think it's going to be mob for quite a while anyway, so it might be okay just to take a step back and
plan that trip for a couple years out.
We said when we pitched our Imagineer concept, JVH, we actually said let's kill Small World and put Tangled in there. But they don't have a ton of space for for expansion apart from what I think they've already planned to do. And we could talk all night about that. So we'll have to save that for another live stream.
But I agree that Tangled needs more love than just a bathroom.
We will be celebrating our own mothers on Sunday, Blair. But
happy early
birthday to you! All right, so let's dig into the meat here because we are trying our level best to keep ourselves contained. What?
That was pretty. No, I just like digging into the meat.
What?
That just sounded funny.
Digging into the meat.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
Yep. Yeah.
Really? I mean, when I was thinking about Tim's just been to Great Adventure, I was thinking like the only themed ride there really is
Skull.
I mean, they have theming. Six Flags does do theming, but they do theming in a very 2 out of 10 Candemonium way.
Good gravy. That does look like really good theming. That's over in Holiday World.
Oh, yeah, I see what he's saying.
So
he's saying he's doing both side by side. Okay.
Once I've done something I haven't done.
Okay.
Those are good choices.
Those are good choices.
Thanks for.
So these are the considerations that you thought I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
Before we dig right into our 10 to 1, we did want to say that the considerations that went into this list, Katie named a lot of them: theming in the queue, music, on-ride elements, and overall experience. I will also say, the big thing, the really big thing, is that when we were doing our top 10 ranking for all of the coasters that we'd ever been on, we had to be very, very picky about this is the whole package, this is the whole experience, so on and so forth. But for this particular list, what we're looking at is theming specific. And on top of theming, is it a fun overall experience?
Yeah.
So theming is the core of this analysis, and then everything on top of that just bumps it up and down on the list, really.
Yeah.
Having said that, everything is subjective, and our list is not going to be your list, and that's okay. Also, we've only done 166 coasters total, and a lot of them have not been themed. So bear in mind that there's...
Although more were themed than I thought as I was going through the list. But I still, like, if they were themed light, I didn't even consider them. But that's because a lot of those ones already made my other top 10 list too.
Blair, we're not actually going to be talking about the Haunt convention tonight, but if anyone wants to see East Coast Haunters, which was the convention we attended 2 weeks ago, we do have a vlog out already from that experience, so you can go check that out. It was a fun time. It was a really fun time. We're trying to remain kind of organized to the best of our ability because we have a tendency to go off topic and be here for an hour and 40 minutes when we could be here for an hour and 10.
Yeah.
That's just how we roll. All right. Number 10. So we have the same number 10.
We have the same number 10.
I feel like this requires some kind of defense, even though it is the bottom of the list. It is a.
I was kind of surprised it was the bottom of your list, honestly.
Because I sing the praises of Tron all the time.
You love Tron.
Well, bear in mind that one of the ones that you expected to be on my list wasn't.
Yeah.
And it is one of your like favorite.
Yeah.
Francis, what's up?
What's up?
You're joined just in time for us to diminish the value of Tron.
I mean, the thing is, like, so
it is number of the theme coasters that we have been on. It is number 10 out of our top 10, which is not bad. It's not bad.
So the reason why it's numbered, why I think it has good theming is it does have a themed queue. It does have pretty much consistent theming throughout the entire ride. And it's a fun, I will say, like, overall, it's a fun ride. I mean, the trains themselves are themed. They nail the theming for the, I'm going to be honest, I've never seen a Tron movie.
You are a disgrace.
Never, ever. So, but I recognize that
shame upon your
I
family.
recognize the intellectual property and that the theming does work. It has on-ride soundtrack, which is fun.
It is wholly immersive. Yeah. It is, with the exception maybe of when you first hit that launch and go around the corner and you're in the outside portion, which only lasts maybe 30 seconds.
But I would argue that's still pretty themed because of the canopy and stuff.
Yeah.
I would say it's still, like, the theming is still pretty consistent. The reason why it's 10 for me and not higher up is, one, I'm just one of those people that is not that comfortable on this ride, and I will always dock points on a ride for comfort when I can ride something that's more comfortable.
It has been said that the harness is not particularly comfortable for many people. I have no problem with it. And I think genuinely it may have something to do with the fact that, just biologically how people are shaped.
Some people got stuff that
how
some
certain people are shaped. There might be more here than other people have here, and I am one of the people that doesn't have as much here, so leaning over this is no problem.
I also think the queue theming is kind of basic.
What? Well, the outside queue, but once you get into I would argue once you get inside the building, the queue is very immersive.
I still think overall, like, as far as like fun things to look at.
Spoiler alert.
Those are definitely on my list.
Those are on the list. We will talk about them.
But anyway, I don't think I need to belabor. I think it is a good.
It's coming. Yeah. So we could argue the merits of Tron as a roller coaster experience and just as a ride experience on the whole. But I think that as for theming, it is up there. Yeah. If you were grading purely on the basis of theming, it is a masterpiece of theming, with possibly the exception, as Katie pointed out, of the outside queue, the overflow queue, which I don't technically feel is part of the ride experience.
But I still feel like once you get inside, like, you get kind of tired of like the lady popping up and talking to you.
I disagree, but that is only because
And you're allowed to disagree,
I
but we
mean-
both ranked it as 10, so we agreed somewhere.
We agreed that of the ones we've been on, this one is lower on the list.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people do crap on Tron, and it's for the most part, people crap on it for one of two reasons: A, the ride is uncomfortable for them, which
Or they feel
understandable,
it's too short.
or they feel it's too short. Those are the two big things. It is a short ride, and I think honestly, if it was a minute and a half longer, it would be higher on my list. The shortness does hold it back.
Yeah, although
but it is
a
fun.
minute and a half longer, I may be like, get me off.
Get me off. It is a fun ride. I will say the launch is particularly fun. It is very immersive. The music, I listen to that music in the car all the time.
We listen to the music a lot.
It's fun.
Fun stuff. So we will be talking
Those will be
about both
discussed.
of those two.
Those will be
GBH.
discussed.
Number 9.
Number 9. So
All
here's
right.
where we split up a little bit.
Yeah, we actually split up for the rest of it.
Yeah.
So
We will remain split.
I for my number 9 put Baron 1898 from
Efteling.
Efteling. This, I mean, is it a spoiler to say this is also on your list, but much higher?
No, that's okay.
Okay, Tim also ranked this one in his top 10 as well. I put it at 9 because even though I do think it has some excellent theming, I feel like the theming does kind of stop after the drop. And the rest of the ride is just coaster. It's fun coaster. It is kind of short. But it
is about as long as Tron.
And the outside queue, which is the most part of it, is like pretty much just staring at a building. You do hear great music, but the real theming kind of that you can appreciate more starts with a pre-show and then a dark ride scene, and then you do the dive. Now you can appreciate a lot of the theming, just watching it too, which I think is important as well. But I'm like, yeah, it's kind of short, and I do think the theming isn't consistent through the whole ride experience and the whole queue experience. But now, I guess based on those criteria, Tron is more themed. I just like this ride better. So that's where that came in. Why is it ahead of
Tron has no inversions, no custom elements, no special. I mean, it does have an S-bend a little bit.
I also love dive coasters.
Dive coaster is a thrilling. It is a more thrilling experience.
Yeah.
Which is understandable why it places a little higher. I'm not going to challenge you on any of your points because I have my own thoughts on Baron, which will be discussed later. I think number 9 is a little low for Baron personally, but I understand why you say that.
Yeah.
Incredicoaster is my number 9.
Kaylee, you've been on this one too.
Kaylee has been on this one,
there.
although Kaylee almost died on this one.
Kaylee,
Not because it's a difficult, but because because it is just like.
This is definitely a themed coaster, Kaylee. So this is another one you've been on.
Yeah. So this one is themed throughout. This used to be California Screamin', by the way.
Yeah.
The only thing that it is lacking is queue theming. As you're going through the queue, you're mostly watching like safety videos and whatnot. It's a largely outdoor queue on the boardwalk. As you get towards the front, you'll start seeing more Incredibles like statuettes and whatnot, and like Edna Mode hiding in the back and whatnot. So that's
hear the
cool.
music.
My soul left my body.
And then you got a cookie.
It is, but once you go through that first launch, everything from that point forward is themed. Disney. This is in Disney's California Adventure, by the way, which is the California part. It is incredibly well themed, and they did a great job kind of reshaping the California Screamin' and making it a little more entertaining throughout the whole ride. I think it is a better night ride than a day ride, which you had made that point previously. But it does have they're not animatronics. They're static statue things, but they talk to you.
And they light up.
They tell a story as you're going. And then by the end of the story, you do have kind of a dark ride show scene waiting for you at the very end.
So I didn't put this one on my top 10 for a couple reasons. One, there was no queue theming. 2, I thought it's overall a better ride themed experience at night because you can see more of the lights and the elements. And even though those tubes, do get dark, it's obviously when the sun is down, you can just see some stuff better.
Said she would do it again.
The second time, I've only ridden it maybe 2 or 3 times, but the last time I rode it, I did think it was a little bit rougher, and I was kind of sad about that. And y'all know I love a smooth coaster, so I was like, it's probably like in my top 15, but not in my top 10.
That's fair. I think it's fun and it's fast and it's very well themed for me, and so that's why it made my top 10.
And that's you. I don't think you're as sensitive as me in roughness on rides.
I'm fairly sensitive, but perhaps not
Yeah. Oh, what did Tim say his number 9 was?
Laugh Track.
Laugh Track's themed.
Laugh Track is pretty
well themed, actually. Where's Volcano?
Volcano is dead. It was at King's Dominion.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
It's dead. Sad.
All right. While you defend this, I'm going to step out for half a second. So
okay. I guess I'm talking. This is the Flying
Die Hollander.
The Vliegen die Hollander, or the Flying Dutchman. That's also in Efteling. The Efteling. This is a dark ride, boat ride / water coaster, so it does count as a coaster credit. This was my favorite ride in all of the Efteling, I think, after our 4 days of being there. So Tim was kind of surprised it was only number 8, but I stuck to my criteria. It does have a pretty amazing themed queue with great queue music as well. You do start out outside, but once you get inside, like, you're in a cool pirate village building with great music. The boat itself is themed. You've got like you've got like this little lantern on the end of your boat, which I think we can see, maybe. I don't know what this picture is. And then you do a whole dark ride scene that's very spooky and cool with really, really great music. And then you take a dive out of the dark ride scene and it becomes a water coaster and you splash down. So I love the music in this ride. I love the queue theming, and it does technically have ride theming, but my argument for why it's kind of lower on my list, even though I love this ride so much, is once you leave that kind of like dark ride scene and it turns into a water coaster, it's pretty much just a coaster. You do go through like a little bridge and then you splash down, and there's not really like more theming, or I don't even think there's like more on ride like audio or whatnot after that. So I stuck to my criteria pretty hard for this one. I do still really do love this ride, and I absolutely had to include Efteling rides in our themed coaster discussion because I do think they do some of the best theming that we've seen. So that's my defense of this ride. I think I'll pull up. Oh, he came back, so he can talk about his next. What is this is number 8?
Yeah, my number 8.
This is number 8.
I was going to critique here.
Oh, well, what are you going to talk about with the Vliegen?
I mean, I will also, like, at some point, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the Vliegen die Hollander again. I will also say that my reasons for liking this ride, I guess, are a little bit different. But I was going to say, too, to your point of it's not really themed outside, the story of this ride is you go through a storm at sea, you die, quote unquote. You get swept into the underworld where the sirens are basically, in command of your soul. And then you escape the underworld, and the escape is the coaster part.
Yeah.
Once you hit that drop for the coaster, you go through smoke or mist or whatever, and then you go through a shed, and then you come back to harbor, and then you splash down, and it's a water coaster. So, yes, you remember. But that's what I'm trying to argue. Like, narratively, it does have theming all the way through.
I know. I stuck to my guns because there were rides that I talk about later that the theming never stops.
Okay.
You know I love that ride.
I know you love that ride. That's why I was trying to... But you were like, because it stops theming after the coaster part. And I'm like, no, that's not true.
Not up to interpretation.
Not sure theming should be up until interpretation. All right, so my number 8 is the Harry Potter and Escape from Gringotts ride at Universal Studios Orlando. First Universal on the list, but not the last.
Nope.
So the Harry Potter attractions at Universal are some of the best themed attractions in the world, be them dark rides, roller coasters, mostly those two. But unless you count the walkthrough experiences too, like the Hole of Hogsmeade and what's the other one? Diagon Alley.
Oh, I heard.
Well, I was focusing specifically on Harry Potter.
Okay.
So Gringotts, from looking at, you would pretty much have to watch a ride POV in order to understand what this ride actually is, and even then, it really doesn't do it justice. You don't know what you're getting into until you get on this ride. It is incredibly well themed throughout. You never leave the immersion of the attraction. It starts in the queue. You go through Gringotts Bank. You've got the goblin animatronics all around you. You descend to the lower levels through an elevator, which is also part of the ride experience, and it's got like the bouncing yada yada. And then it's like when you hit that bottom floor, you've really, I think, only gone like maybe 50 or 60 feet deeper. But the show building is behind Diagon Alley. It's not underground. So the whole thing is a captivation of your imagination from the get-go. And then when you get on the actual ride, it's a really fun roller coaster. It is arguably, and I will stand by this, so far I have not changed this opinion. It's a very controversial take. I feel it is the single best drop, like the physical drop in Universal Orlando. I don't know if I can make the same case for Hollywood, but for Orlando, it is the drop that gets you every single time because it's part of a show scene. Your train is magically lifted off the track. It's a tilt track. So it makes you think that you're going to be dropped into the darkness, and then of course you are.
You're dropped into the darkness.
You're dropped into the darkness, but you're on rails, and you're expecting to be dropped into nothingness because your train literally levitates off the tracks and angles down. From that point forward, it is mostly a dark ride, and I will acknowledge that. And that is why it is lower on my list. It's got some very fun, thrilling elements.
I can see that.
But it is like similar to what we were talking about doing for the Hollywood Drift. It turns and it tilts and whatnot, but it stops a lot too. Like it dead on stops. It doesn't keep going at high speeds all the way
It's
through.
true that it's probably a bit more dark ride than coaster. I ranked it much higher.
It is technically and legally a roller coaster, so it is on my list, and it is incredibly well themed. However, it is arguably more of a dark ride attraction. It is probably better classified as a thrilling dark ride, and that's the only reason it's lower. This is like my probably one of my two must-dos. I was almost going to say my only must-do, but I forgot about ET. My top two must-dos at Universal Studios. We try never to miss Gringotts when we go.
Yeah.
And you have other things to say.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you've said. I was looking for what Tim's. Oh, here it is, number 8. Medusa. What's Medusa?
Medusa. We've done Medusa. It was Bizarro. It was Bizarro when we went in 2020. Medusa was the refit.
And Tron.
The refit. You've not ridden Tron? I guess he hasn't been to Florida since it opened.
Yeah. It's been a minute. Gringa. Sounds like you had a good day, JBH. Numero 7. I just did Spanish and then English. I don't know why. Wait, Francis, I love waiting for that drop.
You would love going to parks with us, Francis. Okay. So you're number 7.
I said Everest. Expedition Everest in Animal Kingdom. First of all, that view is just stunning. Like I think it's got one of the.
It is one of the most immaculate themed rides.
Yeah. The queue is.
This is not the first Disney because we already touched on Tron.
Yeah. The queue is completely themed.
I still feel bad about that. We were supposed to go to Hershey Park with Francis, and unfortunately, we died.
Anyway, back to Everest. The queue is themed from beginning to end. You literally don't escape the theming. There may be like a little bit of like outdoor section where it's just rocks, but even then, and for the most part, when we go, we don't typically wait that long. I think operations are pretty quick on this ride, provided it doesn't go down. It has on-ride sound effects, and I don't know if it's particularly soundtrack, but it's definitely sound effects.
Kind of soundtrack
when you're like
through.
Going up the mountain and you hear
ambient.
like the
ambient sound.
Ambient sound. That's definitely what it is. A bit more of what it's like. You've got the famous Disco Yeti that was once an animatronic, but credit where credit is due.
It is still technically an animatronic.
It's still huge and
it's just not as animated as it used to be.
It's got fun coaster elements, a great drop, a backwards helix section, some definitely some surprises if you've never been on it before. And I love this ride, and I think it holds up. It's been around for gosh, it might be like almost 20 years now.
It wasn't an opening day attraction at Animal Kingdom. It was added later.
I remember watching Disney Channel and seeing commercials for it.
Yeah, same.
And it took me, till I was in my mid-20s to ever get to ride it. So I think it's a great ride. I think it holds up, and it met all my personal criteria for a themed coaster.
It is a solid ride.
Yeah.
I have my own placement for Everest. It's a little bit further down, so I'm going to hold back any criticisms for right now. I agree with everything you said, though.
This one's not on your list, though, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Why would I just say it's further down on my list?
Oh. It's further. Oh, further up.
Yeah. Well, down the line and up the list.
Sorry. I meant when you said further down, I was like, you didn't talk about it yet.
JBH still talking about Gringotts said they could get rid of the 3D glasses. I don't disagree with that. However, it would be hard to do the opening show scene without them.
Yeah,
it wouldn't hold the same.
When the spell comes at
the rest of the ride, I would argue they could do without the glasses, but that particular and Monday they might. Yeah, because they did that for
they figured it out for Forbidden Journey.
They got rid of the 3D entirely, and it wound up working okay. But those, bear in mind, those are using the the concave domes.
Yeah.
That make it a little more convincing as an illusion, and Gringotts is straight up screens. So I don't know, maybe.
Bye. Night, Blair. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, man. All right, my number 8.
7.
7. Sorry. I can't tell because of the live thing and something. So this, many of you will recognize, is the loading bay for Space Mountain. What many of you may not recognize is the number of seats in that train. This is very, very specifically the Disneyland version of Space Mountain. California only. I am not in any way, shape, or form talking about the Magic Kingdoms. Both are immaculately themed. If we're talking exclusively about the theming, we are talking about the same attraction. However, if we are talking about the ride experience, night and day. Just absolutely, there's no comparing these two. Disneyland's was built later. I can't off the top of my head remember how many years later, but I remember that Space Mountain was not opening day, but real near an opening day attraction in the Magic Kingdom in Florida. Space Mountain was an addition to Disneyland's Tomorrowland later on down the line, and as a result of it being built later, it runs much smoother. Its banks aren't as sharp. Disneyland was expanded to accommodate Space Mountain as opposed to it being kind of like shoehorned in there like a lot of attractions are in the Magic Kingdom. So not that Space Mountain is one of them, because Space Mountain was part of the original design. I don't know what Magic Kingdom's excuse is, to be honest with you. Magic Kingdom's ride just runs so rough.
I think in addition to Disneyland's being built later, it has been retracked in the last 10 years or something.
Yeah, it
got a nice tune-up.
It gets a lot of TLC, and that is a huge difference between the Magic Kingdom's current version and Disneyland's version. Disneyland's version is also the one to receive overlays most of the time.
Yeah, you get
once upon a time they had Ghost Galaxy, which I would have died to experience.
To do that.
Never got a chance to because we didn't.
It'd be cool if they brought that back for Oogie Boogie Bash.
Yeah, but they probably won't because Oogie Boogie happens in DCA.
DCA. And when did they do it? When did they do Ghost Galaxy for?
Tim with the Googling. Space Mountain arrived in 1977. Is that Magic Kingdom or California? I'm pretty sure he's talking California.
1977.
Might be Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, this experience in California, thematically, again, identical to the Magic Kingdom. Apart from any overlays they do Hyperspace Mountain for Star Wars Celebration era. I don't know what they call it. Star Wars Appreciation Month. It's not exclusively May the 4th, but it is going on right now, like the Hyperspace Mountain adjustment. Yeah, 1977 for Cali. Okay.
So that would have been 20 years after.
So this still runs like it opened yesterday. It's really smooth. Kaylee, if you're still on, I know this one whips you around a bit. I'm not saying it's not whippy. It is. It's a roller coaster in the dark. It's on tight little Wild Mouse style turns, but it's not too rough. It's not rattly like the Magic Kingdom edition. It's just a little bit smoother. And it also, when you have double the seats, double the space between the two, you have a little bit more, I would say, bounce rather than just being jackhammering the whole time.
And you don't sit like, I think you're just like seated in like a seat as opposed to like the Space Mountain thing in Magic Kingdom where you're kind of like really low. I think that might be part of it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, the best thing about this ride is also the on-ride soundtrack.
Yes, which the Magic Kingdom has, but it's not placed on the actual ride. It's all speakers throughout the ride track.
It's just like ambient space
and
noise.
You really can't. No, it's playing the music. I keep trying to explain this to you because this is an argument that we have.
But the way that
the music occurs on the Magic Kingdom edition, it's coming through
but
speakers.
The music on Space Mountain in California hits. Like
it's timed.
It's
perfectly. It's synchronized to the ride.
It's synchronized to your movements. It's awesome. It's so cool. This is not on my list at all, but I do love this ride.
I'm surprised it's not on your list, but I understand why.
Even though it's, I do think like queue wise, music wise, it's a fun ride experience. I don't think the theming goes as hard because it's basically just like starry darkness.
It's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
But I would argue that the Disneyland version, because maybe it was built later or just because it was a ride that was designed to fit the space, I feel like their lights are brighter. Like they have like a more advantageous.
Well, I just think
place to like project from or something. I don't know. It just feels.
From Efteling is also not on my list, and I very much compare that to the Space Mountain experience. It's a lot of darkness, some stars, some theming. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fair. It's a fair analysis. 6. This is your 6. I know you can't tell because the live is covering up your name, but.
Oh, okay.
You're the first to mention Velocicoaster.
I'm the first. Well, technically, no. I think JBH already mentioned Velocicoaster.
Yes, but of the two of us, you are the first to mention
Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster is. Oh wait. Okay, so wait, this is. Did we?
That's what I feel
are
about.
We on number.
We're on number 6.
Okay, yes. So this is Tim's number 6.
Yes,
okay,
that's
we'll
how
talk about his.
Mako's theming is how I feel about Candemonium too. The sunken ship makes Mako a theme coaster.
Stunt pilot. That's different than.
It's. I do want to just throw this one out here because this is going to come up a lot. A lot of people say this is their number 1 or number 2 top coaster ever.
Yeah.
Period.
Top coaster.
It's a great ride, but I do feel, and this is going to get me coaster canceled, I do feel like it is a little bit overhyped, or that people have a narrow scope for what makes a really cool ride.
Yeah.
This is a great one. It is. And I'm not talking down to Velocicoaster in any way, shape, or form. When we first rode it, it was the coolest thing we'd done that day. Yeah. And it was the coolest thing we'd done up until we did Iron Gwazi, and then everything else kind of fell short.
I still like, a lot of people were like, oh, it's better than Hagrid's. And I'm like, it's never beat Hagrid's for me.
It's always subjective.
But
which is why a lot, like anyone who's watching this now who is a big coaster person will see this at number 6 and be like, what?
I will say, if we had animatronic velociraptors besides just the little head shaking ones in the queue, it may be higher on my list. I love an animatronic. And I was kind of hoping there'd be like another dark ride scene on the ride somewhere. So overall, like, I mean, obviously the trains are themed. There's, a story to tell. You enter you enter the paddock. You've got the Mr. DNA talking to you in the queue line. There's pretty lights. There's stuff to look at. There's the velociraptors in the queue that are breathing. And obviously the queue, it hits the queue theming out of the park pretty much, which I think Universal is very good at doing.
Universal,
as long as you're not in the overflow queue. The overflow queue is kind of boring, but you can't help that.
Well, the overflow queue is still themed. It's similar to the Tron theme. Like your theming is, you see the theming at a distance. You don't see the best of the theming until you get indoors.
Yeah, and then
I just paying attention to Francis's.
Wait, is he talking about this?
Velocicoaster?
Yeah. Oh. I can imagine people passing out on that
This
ride.
is definitely
Let's pull
one of
some
the
Gs.
pass out rides. It does pull some G's, but I do think you would not die on this, Francis.
And then, you know, the ride itself has, you know, this rock work, which is beautiful. It has some, you know, close encounters with velociraptors.
Jamie and Ari, welcome.
It does have some great coaster elements, but I didn't have this one higher because we talked about this with our regular, like our just top 10 coaster ranking.
Because it was on our list.
It's been rough. Like riding it has not been as fun an experience as it was like maybe the first 3 times I rode it. Even like closer to the front, I was like, I was shaking around and I got off kind of like, like this ride is not even 5 years old yet. I don't know if it's just getting beaten up by the Florida elements. I mean, I really hope that Universal doesn't let it, you know, turn into like a Rip Ride Rocket situation.
I would hope not.
Where it's just an unpleasant ride. But maybe I'm just 31 years old and too sensitive, but I
don't think so though, because we ride a lot of RMCs, and RMCs are notoriously intense. And in the coaster world, intense.
But there's a
equals
difference between
roughness.
I can do intense. Intense doesn't mean rattly.
No.
Intense means
there's a big difference between rough and rattly. And Velocicoaster to me, and we, like you said, we talked about this during our original coaster rankings live stream. The Velocicoaster is an incredible retraction. It is in the middle of one of the most active storm areas in the country.
Yeah.
It gets beat on 100 times a day by rain and sometimes tornadoes and whatever else Florida wants to throw at it. Hurricanes more often than not. And it also runs a unbelievable capacity every day, just like one after the other, after the other, after the other. It's possible that some trains are less reliable than others at this point because there are such things as bad trains. You know, one starts to wear down a little faster than the other. You're going to have a rougher ride on that one.
Yeah.
But I do think that Universal, it's probably about time. This opened in 2020. It's 2024.
I think it's a time for
it's
an
about
extended
time, or
refurb.
2021 even. It's even newer than that. It's probably about time for them to do a little bit of necessary maintenance. I don't think it needs a retrack. I think it probably just needs some TLC.
Yeah, it just needs a little. It needs a tune-up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's had.
You got to take your car in for
I
an
could
oil
be
change.
wrong. I don't think it's had major downtime since it opened. And I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a coaster engineer. Maybe that's normal for it not to have had major downtime yet.
Well, it's not in the sense of how normal amusement parks and theme parks operate, because most in our area, we're in the Northeast. In our area, theme parks open between March. Sometimes, mostly April, and they close on January 1st. And a lot of the rides are done for the season in September.
Yeah.
Big coasters especially. During the months of December to usually again March, April, they are doing this TLC. They're doing the work that needs to be done to keep the coasters in operating condition. Velocicoaster is in a park that operates year-round. Every day. Every single day of the calendar year, Universal is open to guests.
Yeah.
And every single day since Velocicoaster has opened, apart from actual technical issues, it has been open and operating with the park.
Right.
So what they really need to do is they need to do, unpopular opinion, they need to close Velocicoaster for a little bit, drive the crowds over to Hagrid's and Hulk, and focus on giving it a little bit of a tune-up. Because Hagrid's got the tune-up not that long ago, and it's running pretty good now. But Velocicoaster, I think it is time.
Yeah. Just for how much it runs and how it gets
Having said that, this is a discussion on theming, and it is a great
theme. It is theming, yeah. Its theming is wonderful.
And for Jamie and Ari, who just joined in time to see Velocicoaster, this is our number 6.
Yeah.
So, well, not ours. This is
My
Katie's
number
number 6. We're on number 6, and we're about to move on up. Stunt Pilot is the RMC Raptor.
That's it. I was trying to remember. I was like, wait a minute, what is that? Thank you, Tim, for your coaster knowledge.
I do agree with this comment on the queue theming at Universal. I know you said the overflows aren't so good, but they're not ungood.
I said in general
they're not
that
completely without
Universal
theming.
does really nicely themed queue rides.
That's for Stunt Pilot he's talking about. Francis, for what it's worth, you only turn upside down twice on Velocicoaster, and it's towards the very end. So I think you could probably survive it, but I understand where your concerns.
We just spent like 20 minutes talking about how rough it is, and you're trying to convince her to go.
I feel like you have to do it at least once, though.
Yeah.
I have to do it.
Well,
oh, Francis is bouncing. Good night, Francis.
Bye, Francis.
We'll spoiler alert for later, but Francis will be joining us on our next live stream. So y'all will get a chance.
You'll see more from Francis very soon.
You'll get to see more of Francis in the near
on
term.
our channel. You should check her out.
Yes.
Now.
Go subscribe to Dream Finding with Francis. All right. To go back to Jamie and Ari's comment, really liked it, but it did have a boxy feel. I think that's fair. That's a fair analysis.
JBH had some stuff to say. Yeah. It is true that the new restraints on Skyrush, much more similar to Velocicoaster, I guess identical, and they are much more comfortable.
Yep.
So.
And he's pointing out that Skyrush now has a seatbelt and Velocicoaster doesn't. But the seatbelt is cosmetic.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually serve any.
think Velocicoaster, I don't think a seatbelt would help with the rattliness.
Most of the bottom ones, I think y'all would agree with.
Yeah.
If you know the coasters, and some of them, I don't think you'll know the coasters, but I think you'll agree with a lot of the bottom ones that we did. All right, my number 6. I told you it was up there.
Okay, that's right. You do have Everest.
I do have Everest. So Expedition Everest, Katie already touched on. It was her number 7?
Yeah.
Oh, it's only one higher for me.
Yeah.
We only did 7 like an hour ago.
We had a lot to say about what Velocicoaster.
Kaylee, you've never done Expedition Everest? All right. I will give it to you that if you have motion sickness, there are some triggers.
It's the backwards.
It's the backwards helix. That is a problem for me as well. And I don't have motion sickness usually, but okay. So let's talk about Expedition Everest. Katie already touched on some of the key elements, which are the music, the ambient loops, the sound loops as you're going up the hill, theming all throughout. It is one of the best themed attractions in the world, and I will stand by that. As a ride experience, I'm not as in love with it as I used to be. It is fun, and it's a great coaster. For coaster enthusiasts who have never done it before, it's a very interesting, unique credit. It has a lot of fun elements. It is very thrilling. It's probably the most thrilling attraction in this park. Oh, okay. Got it.
I thought you'd been on Everest, Kaylee.
Got it. I still stand by what I said, though. And I'll get to that now. Is when you hit this point, the famous, oops, the track is broken because the Yeti tore it up. That is a fun story element, and it's a really great theming element. And I will never not swear by this ride for theming. But when you go backwards then into the dark, you pull a double helix backwards. For me, and I think people who are maybe as tall or have a similar center of gravity to me, that is an element that takes away from the fun a little bit because you get dizzy. And you wind up not being able to enjoy the shadow puppet that comes in the next scene.
I don't get as dizzy from the I feel it, but I don't.
You're shorter.
I don't think that makes a difference.
I think it does because my head is doing this and your head is down here up against the headrest.
Well, keep your head up against the headrest and your hand, arms, and feet and legs inside the ride at all times.
It's your different tangent entirely. I love Everest. I do.
I think after you talking about it, I would switch Everest and Velocicoaster and put Everest at 6 and Velocicoaster below it.
I feel like Everest is one of those attractions where often when you walk into Animal Kingdom at the beginning of the day, if you go straight there, everyone else is going to Pandora. You can get on this ride twice before there's any.
And we have.
And if that is, what our day entails, we will keep doing that. And I have no problem doing that. But for me, it's usually a one and done for the day. I can't do it multiple times.
Yeah.
It wears on you a little bit. And I feel like there are smoother rides.
I do think
that
that
this profile.
The trains themselves, wow, that's a stupid. Agree. Single rider gets you zippy zappy through that line.
But you can also when we're talking about early in the day, you can walk on.
I do think that as far as comfort goes, it's not the most comfortable seat, but I still find it less rattly than Velocicoaster.
It's a good attraction.
Yeah.
My dad, famously, since we're talking about people who are taller or older, and how the ride impacts them, my dad has a famous ride picture from our trip to Disney in 2021. All of us wearing masks on the rides because that was what was required at the time. And as we're going backwards and then forwards through the dark after the fact, that's where the camera takes your picture. His ride picture, and I'll blow me up so you can see, is literally looking at the camera like this.
Help me.
And when he got off the ride, he was like, that's how I felt as soon as we started going back. And I have to sympathize with that a little bit, because it is for a certain body type and a certain height and a certain, I mean, everything is subjective, but I feel like this one is brilliantly themed throughout, and it's a must-do credit. However, it may impact different people differently. So for the same reason that Tron is a little lower, this did not make my top 5. And I love both of these attractions from that standpoint.
Number 5.
Number 5. This is your number 5. We're still in Disney.
We're still in Disney.
We're still in Disney.
Disney and Universal are pretty good at theming rides.
You could say,
we've only been to 2 international theme parks at this point.
So far. But we have some on the books.
Chico's got some fun theming, the drop tubey tower thing.
Secra, okay. Well, I won't argue. It's theme wise, I'd put it at Candemonium level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be 2 or 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's got rock work, but it doesn't even really have the queue going for it.
It doesn't.
Thunderbird, I don't know.
Busch Gardens doesn't always theme their queues.
Not always, but they did for Dark Coaster.
They did. 7 Dwarves Mine Train. Wait, what is Ari talking about here? This?
Yeah.
Okay. Dark ride scene. Yes. I put this as my 5th because I think it just knocks theming out of the park. You've got...
I mean, even the screen grab I took.
You've got interactive queue elements, games to play. The train itself is so themed.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of Ari's comment for a second. It's covering up my train. The train itself is so themed. It looks like, one of the 7 Dwarves Mine cards. It swings, which is a fun coaster element. It's got the cute little lantern. You can see the surrounding areas of the ride are very well themed. So as Ari already mentioned, I would argue there's almost like 2.5 dark rides. I guess it's 2 dark rides scenes. The final scene with the house is kind of a outside dark ride scene.
Yeah, but it uses an animatronic and it tells the story.
And it helps tell the story. But the inside dark ride scene where you're in the mines and they're singing and it's so pretty. And I think it owns theming. It's a short ride, and it's usually not worth the 2-hour wait that it has.
It is absolutely not worth the 2 hours.
But it's I'm hesitant to give this tip, but I like you guys, so I'll give it. Fantastic fireworks ride. The queue gets very short. If you're having like a multi-day trip to Disney and you've already watched Happily Ever After, or you don't care about watching Happily Ever After.
I care about watching.
We do, but we didn't care about Enchantment.
We didn't care at all about Enchantment.
And it was a fantastic fireworks ride.
I have been on 7 Dwarves Mine Train no less than 8 times in the time that we have been going to Disney, which for us recently and as adults, 2020 and forward.
3 of those times were all fireworks.
I was just going to say no less than 8 times, and we have never, ever, ever waited more than half an hour.
Yeah.
Never.
Maybe argue 45 minutes.
Never. I said what I said.
Well, we've either got...
You gotta know when to jump in
We either
line.
Bought the lightning lane.
Yeah, exactly. You pay to play, or you work the crowds.
Or we did after hours. And that limited the crowds. But yeah,
queue theming is immaculate too.
And I do think it's a really fun ride. It is short. Does it deserve to be 5 out of 10 on anyone's list? Maybe not.
If I were this is another one where if I were rating solely on theming and not on the ride experience beyond the theme as well, it would be on my list. As it is, it's not.
Yeah.
Because there were other ride experiences that are more fun.
I can understand why it's not on everyone's
But
list.
for the casual coaster enthusiast, this is one of the better attractions.
I think this is one of those things that just shows like I'm way more of a theme person than I am a coaster person. And I'm still a pretty big coaster person too.
Yeah. But I'm in that same camp and it's not as high on mine either. So different strokes for different folks.
Yep.
I was going to say for JBH, he said he's nervous to get on SeaWorld Orlando and Busch Gardens Tampa coasters. You have to do it.
Iron Gwazi's great.
Iron Gwazi is... I don't know.
JBH, you did Wildcats Revenge, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was on our full coaster rankings live stream a couple weeks ago, but Iron Gwazi is our mutual number one. Yeah. And it's probably not going to change. And that threw Hagrid's out after a lengthy battle.
Yeah.
So it's a must do. Mako also is on both of our lists.
SeaWorld and Busch Gardens Tampa have some pretty good coasters.
And Manta, I think, is in Tim's top.
Some of the coasters I don't think are very good at all, but that's just me.
In general, B&M floorlesses are not as
our
strong.
thing.
Not as strong.
Not our thing.
Seven Dwarfs is Jamie's number one coaster. That's fair. I mean, I know that Jamie's not as big a coaster person. So.
I mean,
Seven Dwarfs checks all the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great family coaster.
I will also say that Big Thunder, to my knowledge, is not on either of our lists, but not because it's not an awesome ride, just because there were better rides that had to bump it off.
I almost had the Big Thunder from California on my
It
list.
is such a good ride.
It's both of them are definitely in my top 20.
There are, and I won't tell you when, and I won't tell you why, but there are some soft plans to make it out to Disneyland Paris in our future. And that Big Thunder Mountain is supposedly the best of the bunch.
We've got a few themed coasters that we'd have to do this again because you have like the Finding Nemo coaster out there.
Yep.
There's another version of Big Thunder.
Are we going to have the Oaken
Indiana
coaster
Jones
at the Disneyland Paris Frozen Land? I don't know if
Yeah,
we are or
I don't know
not.
if
We
we're
might.
gonna get the Oaken coaster.
We might. They have an Oaken coaster in Hong Kong, which is pitifully small and short, but it is very well themed all the way through. Yeah, Manta was his number 9 and Wantu is his number 7 for Tim. Both of which are themed, just not as themed as some of the other things on this list. Okay, my number 5. Baron 1898. I almost said 1998.
The music is so good.
Kaylee didn't know about the Oaken coaster.
Oh yeah, you gotta YouTube that.
Yeah.
They have POVs of it now.
They have
Kaylee.
POVs.
It's super cute.
It's very, very
I think
cute.
you could ride that.
I definitely think
very
you could ride
family.
it. If you can do Seven Dwarfs,
friendly.
you can definitely do the Oaken coaster.
It does seem like half a ride. Like it needed to be double the
It is,
like
it is the Yoo-hoo Oaken.
Big summer blowout.
45 seconds long. Yeah. Basically, it's not worth any wait at all. If you have to wait, you've wasted your time. But it's a coaster credit.
It's a credit, so we'll have to do it whenever we go there, but
All right, so Baron, Katie's already talked about. It was much lower on her list than it is on mine. The reason Baron 1898 in Efteling, the Netherlands, is so much higher on my list is because all the things that Katie talked about as being, similar to De Vliegende Hollander, when you go through the coaster portion, it is less themed. However, I continue to argue what I started to argue there for De Vliegende Hollander, which is that once you're in the coaster layout, it's still part of the narrative story. It's just you can only do so much for theming as you're roaring through a coaster layout.
I understand that.
Well, what you talked about at the beginning, I think when you were talking about Baron, you did leave out a little bit of the queue theming because there are multiple pre-shows.
I didn't. I said that.
You
I
did?
said the queue is not really like the main outdoor queue, which is most of the queue.
The outdoor queue is still themed. It's themed in the same way that Expedition Everest and Universal's Velocicoaster are themed, whereas like you can see the better elements ahead for most of it, but it's not unthemed. It's the further you get into it,
it's less themed than some of the other rides I've talked
the
about.
further you get into it, the more themed
And
it's
I
gonna
did
be.
mention, if you go back and listen to the replay, I mentioned show scenes and dark ride scenes, and they were awesome.
3 pre-shows.
It does. It tells a story.
One at the
even
beginning.
If you don't understand any Dutch, you can kind of pick up on the story.
One at the beginning with an actual kind of story scene. One in the indoor queue area, which involves an animatronic, and one on the ride itself, which sets the tone for the rest of the ride.
It's a cool ride.
There is music throughout up until the final coaster section, which may be, less than a minute long. So it's not a big deal once you get to that point, if you don't have theming from that point forward, in my opinion. And honestly, the same goes for Die Vliegende Hollander, but it's a little bit longer. My thing is that, this is the whole package. It is fun, it is thrilling, it is well-themed, it is immersive, it has dark ride segments, it has great music. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. So this is up there for me. It is not number 1, but it was really hard to bump it down out of the top 3. Mind you, we've only done, as Katie said, 1 European park so far. And a lot of European parks have immaculate theming for roller coasters. Yeah. So we might find that our list changes dramatically after the next trip.
I still think I might rearrange my list a little bit after time. Sometimes it's like after we talk through it, I'm like, well, wait, I didn't think about that. I'm going to move it.
Unless I'm the one who says it, in which case you say,
yeah.
Like the Swedish chef. All right. We're on to number 4. Gringotts for you. Right? Yes, yeah. This is you. You always come first.
Okay, so I'm going to admit that I'm completely biased for the Harry Potter ride.
Potter nerd.
I think, like JBH said, Jurassic Park has a special place in his. I'm wearing Jurassic Park, so I'm representing that as well. So I also did. I think my expectations for this ride were lower because it does have kind of a else side story plot to it that I wasn't sure how it would fit, and I was kind of prepared to judge it. But the ride itself is so fun, and I think it's done really well.
Well, on the basis of being a Harry Potter nerd, and not on the basis of the ride experience, right?
Yes.
More narratively.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, how are they going to make this work? And I think they did. Also, I really like the actor who plays Bill Weasley, and he's in it a lot for the pre-show. So, yay!
Donald Gleeson is strangely easy to get a hold of for ride experiences.
And it does.
More on that later.
I mean, Tim already talked about it. Immaculate queue theme, and you can't, if you are a Harry Potter fan, you walk into Gringotts and you're like, whoa, it's so cool. It has multiple, kind of pre-show elements to help tell the story. And the ride itself has some, it's got the drop track, which is a really I would argue, a unique coaster element. It's got maybe 2, at least 1 launch, which is pretty fun. And in the story, it's when the dragon pulls you, so you really feel like you're getting.
It does feel like you're being pulled, not like you're being launched.
A 0 to 40 launch, and it's not that fast. But inside of the dark, it feels like you're going 80 miles an hour.
This is Tim's.
Montu,
ridden, and not ridden.
Taryn would absolutely be on this list if we had been on it.
Would destroy everything on this list. I'm just telling you.
Taryn, and the music for Taryn is
and will.
Yeah. We'll get there one day.
Will destroy this.
Anyway, Gringotts is higher for me because I do think that it knocks the theming out of the park in the queue, in the ride itself. Even though there is a lot of screens, there is also a lot of practical things, big Gringotts doors and stalagmites and stalactites. There's, smoke and water and fire effects. It is probably arguably a bit more like a dark ride than a coaster in some elements, but because it has the launch and it has the drop track and it does have some S-bends. Remember, Tim brought up the S-bends.
Does it have S-bends?
I think it has S-bends. When you're going through the little the little like cave part.
I guess it's hard to know for sure because you're being spun as you're doing most of the layout.
It feels like
hard for me to tell you exactly what the layout looked like. But I do remember all the showstopper scenes.
And I have never not had a good time on this. Like I've never gotten off been like, wow, that was uncomfortable, or oh, I feel sick, or whatever. Like I always get off that ride and I'm like, and I'm doing the universal clap.
Yeah.
Because it's a good time.
I will go back to what I had said earlier and say that this is one of our top 2 attractions at Universal Studios, and it's one that we never miss.
But in Tim's defense, I could be convinced that it has less coaster and more dark ride, and probably doesn't deserve to be a number 4 on a coaster list. But
which was the only reason why. And Jamie and I, you were asking about the earlier numbers on our list. Gringotts was my number 8.
Yeah.
Which is respectable, having done 166 roller coasters, I think.
Epic universe.
Oh, that's gonna wreck everything.
That's gonna wreck everything
it's gonna wreck everything. How to Train Your Dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon coaster.
It's like How to Train Your Dragon's gonna be mini Terra.
Yeah.
My number 4 is
Velocicoaster.
Velocicoaster, and I feel like we've done this one to death, so I don't feel like we have to reiterate all of that all over again. But the Velocicoaster experience has diminishing returns since 2021, I think, and it is not as smooth as it used to be. However, I will give it up for being a really just all-around fun attraction that is not inherently painful, that has dark rides, it has launches, it has inversions, it has the top hat. My biggest things in enjoying a coaster, any coaster, regardless of theming, although theming was one of my big things, are theming, speed, and quote-unquote that first drop. So this is one of those awesome coasters.
Is that first drop for Velocicoaster the launch, or is it the top hat?
Pick one. It doesn't matter. They're both great. I see where your head's at, but launch coasters, yeah, probably that first drop would be the first launch. But first drop, first launch, whatever. When it throws you into the ride itself, if that exhilarates you and if it makes you smile instead of
Two's Express.
Two's Express was so good. It's so stupidly good.
That's stupid little kitty coaster.
Okay. So yeah, Velocicoaster's up there. Also, I don't think we talked about it, but the on-ride audio is behind your head.
That's true.
Their speakers are mounted, like you can see them on they're lights, but they're also speakers.
I think on-ride audio should have been like one of my 4th criteria, probably, for ranking my coasters.
Probably. It was a big part of mine.
I still thought about it, but I didn't think about it consistently.
Onboard audio as opposed to on-ride audio, 2 different things. Onboard audio really deepens the immersion of certain things. Which is why, and I'll tell you, when we were building our lists, I had a ride that most of you will never have heard of called Dwervelwind from Toverland in the Netherlands. It's a spinning coaster. It's very well themed in the station. It doesn't carry all of the theming through the actual ride experience, which it really can't. It's a type of ride that it's like free spinning for most of it, so it wouldn't make sense for it to have theming elements that you might not even see. But it does have speakers right in front of you, and the music is so much fun.
So pretty.
It's so pretty
it's
and
like
so fun, and it's just like it does help you like kind of immerse. Everything there is themed. It's just this was one. Of the
I do like want to say, like, on behalf of just coasters everywhere, that not every coaster needs to have
theming.
Like we were discussing earlier about
Wildcats Revenge is minimally themed, but it is a great ride.
Yeah, like I don't need Wildcats Revenge to have more theming or more elements of theming than what it does. I do think that when the rides that I feel like are missing out on theming are rides like Pantheon at Busch Gardens, like
where there is supposed to be theming and
there was definitely supposed to be some rock work or fallen ruins or something like that, and I think it would add to it. But you know, not every ride needs to have theming.
I will say, apart from the brand new seats and restraints that we got on Skyrush, which were a huge upgrade and definitely made the ride experience more bearable for people like us that didn't particularly enjoy being broken in half by the first drop. The minimal amount of theming that they did to the station
added a lot.
Doubled my enjoyment of the ride. Like genuinely, like getting on the ride now is so much more fun than it ever was beforehand. And it was always an intense ride. It's still an intense ride, and for a lot of reasons, I think it's just as good as it's always been. But the theming of the station went a long way to impress people like me, who Hershey Park, and this is part of why I gave them a little shout out. Hershey Park has really been trying hard to do more theming and to make themselves a proper theme park recently. They have for a long time been an amusement park. That was all they were ever meant to be when the park was established. And only now in the last decade or so, with the Chocolate Town expansion, have they started to really embrace, well, why don't we lean into some of the candy IPs, but also just some of the random, like, you know, Sky Rush has to mean something. It can't just be Sky Rush. What does that mean to anyone? Let's make it themed around like an airplane. And make it, you know, like you're taking off when you go out of the station. And that, it just adds a lot. It adds a lot. It's funny that JVH would bring up Revenge of the Mummy because you're number 3,
my lord. I know, that was a perfect. I was like, is it number 3 or number 2? I can't remember.
I was looking at the list as he commented.
We're talking about Revenge of the Mummy in Orlando.
Yes.
There is I think it's the exact same name, Revenge of the Mummy in Hollywood.
It's either Revenge or Curse of the Mummy.
Maybe.
But it's a very different ride.
It's a different ride. I like both. I prefer, one of the few things I prefer in Orlando versus Hollywood.
Universal's Orlando is very different.
It's very
Disney.
different. I will say there's most things that are the same in Disney, not the same. I would argue they're not the same. That are similar in Disneyland and Disney World, I like better in Disneyland. Not the case for the Universal parks. Blech. For Bolton was a tough one to leave off my list.
It was in my 15. Bolton was in my 15.
Because I do think
so was Dark Coaster.
It's some of the best theming that Busch Gardens has done, and I think it's a good one to be. You'll enjoy. I'm excited for you to see that part too.
I will say nothing on Manta tops anything on this list for theming. From either side. It is a more fun ride than I gave it credit for initially, but it is not the biggest theme coaster after the queue anyway.
Back to Revenge of the Mummy. This is a indoor dark ride coaster at specifically the one I'm talking about, Universal Studios in Orlando.
And this one is more coaster than dark ride. It's the flip. It's half and half, but it's more coaster than dark ride as opposed to Green God's Balance.
It is super fun. It has a fantastic queue with audience patron participation. Basically, you can make stuff happen in the queue. It's fun. It has Brendan Fraser.
For as long as that lasts.
For as long as it lasts. It has Brendan Fraser. It's got a unique story. Like, they're not just retelling the story of the first Mummy movie. It's actually, a cute story about a side story about the cursed production of the Mummy, and who doesn't love the cup of coffee line at the end of it. It's quite funny.
They did snip a lot out of the pre-show that gave context for the cup of coffee.
Yeah,
so if you're riding it for the first time
I wish I had ridden it like 15 years ago, but I never did, because my cousins who lived in Florida were always like, we're going to Islands because Islands has better rides. And I would argue that, maybe Islands has more rides, but not all of them are better than the rides at Studios. So I didn't get to Studios until I was in my late 20s, and by that time they had already taken away some of the story of the ride. But anyway, great queue. The ride itself is theming all the time. You start with a dark ride scene with fire effects, animatronics. There's launches. There's like a what do they call that? Like a rotating track. Turntable. Yes, a turntable. Screen effects, practical effects. It's fun. It's scary at times.
If you don't know what you're getting into, if you've never seen a POV, this ride will trick you. And that's all I'm going to say.
And
it will change your perception of reality a little bit, coming on and off.
I don't think I've ever had like a bad ride. I don't think it's that rough. And I do think it does get enough maintenance that it went down for kind of a lengthy refurb, I think last year at some point, and got some tune-ups. There were times we've ridden it where it's like, oh, that mummy didn't pop up, because the animatronic wasn't working and it
Oh no!
Oh no! I'm sure
Jamie.
that ride may have been too much for her, knowing that it's definitely, I wouldn't describe it as a family coaster. It's definitely more thrilling.
This seems like the ideal time to congratulate Jamie and Ari on their recent engagement.
That's right. We didn't. That was the last. It was before last time.
It was their most recent Disney trip. Their most recent Disney trip.
We're so happy for you guys.
Hopefully, Jamie will forgive the many, many times that Ari will not tell her what she's getting into.
Hey, if you can't watch a POV of this.
You can't. It will ruin it.
First of all, they're not allowed, so they're probably not good POVs. And second of all, it's not going to give you any concept of what you're about to get into.
Yeah,
I
full ride is indoors.
I ranked it higher than Green Gods because I did feel more coastery to me. But yeah, I love this ride. I think it's another we have to do. Guardians, the Cosmic Rewind.
Cosmic Rewind.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think this one is on your list at all.
It's not, but I will give it up for it being a terrific ride. It's just it just wound up being like one of those that was just barely outside the top 10 for me personally, based on the ride experience as a whole. And this is another one of, honestly, this is probably another one that we should be doing every time, but oftentimes we don't because the queue is too long.
Sometimes it's too long, and if we don't have...
It does not have the best loading capacity. Yeah. I will say that of the Mummy. It backs up.
But we definitely have...
If you have Express, it's a must-do.
We've definitely done it with Express, or when it comes back on after being down for a few hours, we'll jump in that line. Sometimes when it's just pouring rain and we're like, well, we got nothing better to do, let's just...
but when it's pouring rain is when it has the longest.
Yeah, but sometimes we just do it because it's either that or stand in the rain.
I do want to put it to Kaylee on whether or not she's been on the Orlando edition, because I know she's been on the Hollywood edition with us, but the Orlando edition is very different.
Yeah.
Very different attraction. So I think the Hollywood one would not have made your list. It might have just been edged out.
I prefer the Orlando one to Hollywood. I enjoyed Hollywood. It was different enough.
It was different. It was a very different. Okay, she has done Orlando. Okay. Cool. So we're not spoiling anything by talking about it.
She agrees.
Yes, Orlando. I think Orlando does have the superior attraction, but as with many things, I'm glad that both exist.
Yeah.
Mystery Mine.
This is a different one.
Now, this one didn't make your list at all, and this one surprises a lot of people probably that know my taste in roller coasters, because I hate
vertical lift hills.
Vertical lift hills. Hate them. Despise them. Want them all to die.
Where's Mystery Mine?
It is a necessary. It's in Dollywood.
You didn't say.
I didn't say?
Nope.
I didn't say. It's in Dollywood. Mystery Mine is in Dollywood. This is the only Dollywood attraction on my list because it is the only so immaculately themed Dollywood attraction. Second best theming in Dollywood goes to Fire Chaser Express, I would say.
Yeah.
And then Big Bear after that.
Are we not counting Blazing Fury because it's more of a dark ride with a drop?
Yeah, I feel like it is a long dark ride with a couple roller coaster portions. I think it is much more of that than it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Having said that, we did love doing Blazing Fury, and it does count as a coaster credit. It's just not as much. Oh, Kaylee. Kaylee had a rough day when we went to Dollywood where she wasn't feeling the best, and it would have been a mistake to put her on Mystery Mine.
Yeah. We were not doing great at hydrating that day.
We were really, really bad at hydrating that day.
Yeah.
I am glad that Ari got to do it though.
Mm-hmm.
The vertical lifts. The problem I have with vertical lift hills.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable all the way up. It doesn't. When you're going up a regular lift hill, you get excited anticipating what might come around the corner and all that. But the discomfort of vertical lifts is so present that I can't focus on the fun I could be having because I'm so uncomfortable. So I would rather they scrapped all vertical lifts everywhere. Having said that, we've done a lot of vertical lifts because coaster credits seem to pile up. Especially internationally, you'll find a lot of vertical lift hills. And one in particular that we that just opened in a certain park. We will have to do a vertical. Technically, it's not a lift, but Mystery Mine makes it all worth it. And this one is high on my list, even though it's the type of ride that I really rarely ever enjoy. It is a little bit of a headbanger, but it is so immaculately themed throughout. This is a true dark ride coaster. This is what I think, if Gringotts was this in terms of the thrill and the coaster layout and all of that, it would be more higher on my list, I think, as a coaster credit. But Mystery Mine has multiple dark ride scenes which follow the intensity of the ride. They do not slow down and stop you so that you can see the dark ride scenes. I think there's even some theming as you're going up the vertical lift hill. There is. Did you see like the birds or something? No, it's the dynamite. It's they set off the explosions while you're going up the vertical lift, which does distract you a little bit from the discomfort of the vertical lift. Right. It is just an all-around fun ride. There's theming on the outside. There's like, even before you enter the queue, there's like a buzzard animatronic that sits there and talks to you, or that you can hang out with if you're waiting for someone else to come off. Just looking at that from the outside, you're like, walk up and you're like, whoa, this is a roller coaster.
I agree with everything that you've said. And the reason why it's not on my list and probably not even in my top 15 is the headbanging. Mm-hmm. I tolerated the ride and I enjoyed it for the immaculate theming, but anytime I'm uncomfortable, you're dead.
I will also give it up to Ari's comment on Thunderhead being the best ride there, because Thunderhead is the best ride there. But for theming and for theming only, Mystery Mine exceeds theming. Thunderhead.
It's just a great ride.
Blazing Fury is the one.
It's like the indoor one that we did like many times, because when it rained, it was a great place to go. And it's where Tim lost his Pokemon hat.
I got it back,
and he got it back.
Rip Ride Rocket can go die in a hole. And it sounds
like it might.
It sounds like it might be on its way out, which is going to make a lot of people very sad. But Rip Ride Rocket is probably the roughest ride we've had in years, and we said we were never going to do it until it was retracked, and it sounds like it's never going to be retracked.
It sounds like it might just be
might be pulled out. So if they build something new in its place, I'll be happy to claim that coaster. Dollywood is great. It is not huge on coaster theming, but it is pretty good. It's a very balanced park.
It's a great park.
It's got something for everyone.
Yeah. It's very well maintained in terms of like the grounds and so much entertainment. It's got a lot of heart. I think it's got a lot of heart.
I got the hat back. Don't worry. Everything is okay.
Yes, the hat did come back. It was a great moment to get the hat back.
Those of the Dollywood Ride Ops rescued my hat for me. Okie dokie. We're down to the final two. This is yours.
We haven't talked about this one yet.
We haven't.
Copperhead Strike was one I did have on my
the Copperhead Strike is on a list of 20. It's on my number 16.
Yeah. This is Cosmic Rewind, or Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind in Epcot, Walt Disney World, Florida. Now granted, I've only been on this ride, I think, twice. Hoping to get on it again at a future trip. I
get on again.
Of course, like it's got the themed queue, it's got pre-show, it's themed all throughout the ride, on ride soundtrack, and it's got the rewritability with, I think it's 5 or 6 different possible songs you could get. So there's that. It could be a
same
slightly
song twice, I'm pretty sure.
No, I thought we had
Everybody Wants to Rule the World,
and then we had One Way or Another, I thought.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure everyone wants September. I'm hoping we get September one day, but we'll see. So it's like a party coaster. It's very smooth. I had just a blast the whole time, backwards launch and in terms of like fun coaster elements, definitely some S-spins when you're spinning around and stuff like that. I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy as a Marvel entity.
They got September.
That's lucky.
Wait a minute. September is the one that people usually want most.
Which one is the one you want most? One way or another?
It's always grass is greener.
Which one did we say that you want the most?
One way or another.
Because I want September. Because September's like, I mean, everyone loves that song, but and if I said this, everyone would probably agree. It's like a popular song for my family to like dance to at weddings and stuff like that. And the Guardians themselves are just a very like, I don't know, they touch me in a different way. And the thing about the ride is when you listen to Everybody Wants to Rule the World, it becomes like a very like zen like space ride, but then you get One Way or Another and it's like, ooh, it's a little like more uppity, and it's interesting. Anyway, I like this ride. It's not on Tim's list.
It's not on my list. And it's not because it's not a great ride. I do like the ride. It's just because when it comes down to theming and coaster experience as a whole, the coaster experience on this one is great. The theming is pretty great too, but it is heavily reliant on screens.
It's true.
I don't love that about it.
It's true.
There's some physical props that I wasn't expecting in this ride if you've never done it before. And that was those elements were the coolest pieces for me. But even when you enter the queue line, it's so many screens that I was just like, I would much rather have like physical set pieces and whatnot.
I think I was thinking a lot about the ride experience more than the overuse of screens. And since you brought it up, and I've talked about things like Gringotts and Mummy,
you might have to reshuffle.
I may scooch it down for overuse of screens.
Too many screens, Disney.
It's true. It's true.
But I think that Universal has kind of set the bar now for like people are more interested in practical experiences. Screens are fine if they're used creatively.
If they're used creatively, yes.
Screens that are overused become kind of just a deterrent. And I understand you can't actually have Chris Pratt on the ride with you. So you have to use screens where you have to use screens. But I think that it would be a better attraction if there were one or two animatronic rockets and Groots.
Oh, that actually would be
not as many screens with the Guardians doing Guardian things.
It's true. I think I can agree with that.
We do have kind of a soft trip on the books, JBH, but it'll be our anniversary, so we may not be meeting up with people while we're down there. Well, we're not 100% committed yet. We'll let you know. So. Good use of screens, Navi River Journey. Yeah. There's a couple like hybrid sets.
Like layers. So you're putting like the screen is used to show like depth or something, and then there's practical stuff in front of it. I think another like good use of screens is like the Secret Life of Pets ride in Universal Hollywood. They have screens that add to what's going on in the practical sets. It's impossible not to overuse screens, but that's why I'm not as like in love with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Even though I know they do interesting things, it's all very much like projections on things.
Well, the bane of Mickey and Mickey's is that they had to kill the Great Movie Ride, which is a fantastic animatronic classic dark ride up until that point. So I can't ever really be in love with that attraction. Now at Toontown, it makes a lot more sense. At Toontown, it's fine. It made
sense.
But at Hollywood Studios, I feel like it was a waste of potential to get rid of the actual true dark ride for the trackless screen ride. Yeah. However, I still do Mickey and Minnie's. I enjoy the ride for what it is. I just have a hard time falling in love with it.
Yeah.
My number 2 is your number 8.
8?
Which surprised me.
I've already said my piece. I still feel okay about my rankings of the 2 Efteling rides.
I do feel mine has I chose a picture of the dark ride portion for you because that was what you were going to focus on for theming. Yeah. This is the coaster portion, which spits you out of the top of that castle.
I mean,
sends you around the track.
You can see the castle, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
the castle is great. You go through a shed to escape and through the mist to kind of resurface, and then you go around the track, the U-bend, you come back, and you splash down. And that's all coaster portion. It's longer than Baron 1898.
Yes.
So I'll give it that.
Overall experience.
A whole ride, it is still short. And it typically does have a long line, but the long line takes you through a very immaculately themed queue, so I don't mind it as much. The music is a big time jammer, but
music is a big time jammer.
It's probably not how anyone with a brain would describe it.
Big time jammer.
Big time jammer. I listen to it. I do listen to it in the car all the time. But anyway, we kind of already touched on this. For anyone who missed it, we'll just recap that the Vliegende Hollander is in the Netherlands. It is a dark ride mixed with a water coaster, and the dark ride portion takes you through a series of unfortunate events where you go out to sea, you encounter a storm at sea, you die, you go to the underworld, the sirens take hold of you, and at the very last second, you escape by turning your boat into a roller coaster, basically. And it is awesome all the way through. It's one of our favorite. Talking to my jammer. It's a jammer. Okay. Just y'all, after this live stream, I can't play it in here, obviously, for copyright reasons. But if you go online and you look up Efteling De Vliegende Hollander OST, the first thing that will come up, I guarantee you, is the main theme song, and it is.
It's a banger.
You just swing back and forth to it all night.
You just want to have like a mug full of beer. Like a flagon.
Okay. It's a fun coaster. It's an all-around great attraction. Theming is immaculate, and I would argue against Katie's position that the coaster part isn't as well themed, because it's still part of the ongoing narrative. I think if we did it at night, which we couldn't do because the Netherlands night never falls. Night never falls.
In the summer, the sun is up until like 10:30.
Yeah, but in the wintertime, this is going to be a terrifying night ride.
The other thing is that we rode it several times, and most times we only got like a little mist. But one time we rode it, we got wet. And it was like you just don't know.
We did it 4 times.
It depends on how many people are in your boat, you know, what the weight distribution is of the boat.
But I will say, Efteling is one of those theme parks that has just like everything thought out. Yeah. And to certain extents, even better than Disney, I think. Because De Vliegende Hollander is designed specifically so that they can operate it during the wintertime. When in your mind, you're like, there's snow on the ground. I don't want to get on a water ride. It's going to be absolutely miserable. But they've actually designed the boats in such a way that they can temper the splashdown.
It's true.
So you don't, if you get a little mist, you might get a little mist, but you don't actually get like soaked.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to see what that feels like. And that's me saying that. So you know it must be a great ride. We're on to our last one. Oh. No worries, JVH. Yeah. That wasn't a poke at you. That was in general.
We're still ironing out details of our.
And we know too many people.
Yeah. if we said hi to everyone, we wouldn't have any time for ourselves. So.
Yeah. So we have to figure out what it looks like. But we will be in touch if we have a little bit of free time.
Yeah.
So our number one is a shared number one. Surprise!
Could you have guessed?
Surprise!
Hagrid's. We get to talk about Hagrid's again. We've never ridden that.
Oh, it would have been Tim's top one too if he'd ridden it.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to ride all these rides, Tim.
Yeah. This will be an interesting reshuffle of this list.
Yeah.
You all have to look up my jammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, guess what we're going to be listening to after this is over?
Yeah. It's Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, which is the most obnoxious name for a ride ever.
We all just call it Hagrid's. And we never probably will call it anything else.
Yeah. I mean, themed queue. Even the outdoor portion has theming. Not to mention, you know, even if you are stuck outside for a little bit, you get to watch the coaster go by, which I would argue is a nice, you know, experience. You get to hype yourself up for it.
The bulk of the queue is indoors.
Yeah. When you do get inside, queue theming throughout. Nice, like, you know, show scenes. Sometimes a pre-show, sometimes not, I guess, depending on how.
Well, you still have pre-show, but you don't. You have
don't always
A
get
mode
the-
and B mode.
Yeah. A mode
Similar
is
to the
you
Na'vi River
actually
Journey.
see the whole
Like,
pre-show.
The pre-show that they had intended you to see is actually fun and entertaining and goofy, and the pre-show that you may see in B mode is kind of just like a people mover type. Like you just watch things as you go through, but you don't actually care.
But anyway, it's still theming. The trains themselves, of course, are themed. The ride, the theming, and this was important to me that I tried to make clear. The theming of this ride never stops. It never stops. You're not just do a dark ride scene and you're done. Like you start out with theming. You get to see Hagrid in his hut. You get to go by Fang. You get to go by the Fort Anglia. You go into the. I'm sorry if you haven't ridden this ride before and I'm spoiling everything for you. But you go into the forbidden. Like it does not stop. And at the very end, it's a unicorn, and look, she's a mum. Like it doesn't stop.
And the coaster experience is equally as compelling because it's multiple launch. It's called a blitz coaster, and it's called that because you launch several times throughout. It's not just one launch and you're done. It has S-bends like we were talking about earlier, which are thrilling enough for families without being over.
Drop track.
It's got the drop track.
Backwards.
The backwards portion. The spike. You go up the spike and then you come back down in reverse. It's got switch tracks that allow that to happen without running into the back of another train. It also has incredibly high capacity. They can run, I think, 8 trains on this at once.
On-ride audio, soundtrack,
throughout.
Storytelling.
It is the most fun I have ever had on a roller coaster and will probably never
will never forget after riding it for the first time how much I cried. I'm tearing up a little bit thinking about it, and I probably will always tear up when you see Hagrid because R.I.P. I'm starting to tear up again. I'm just thinking about it.
They're there.
Robbie Coltrane, R.I.P. I literally cannot even fathom them casting. Like there's talk. It's happening.
We're not gonna talk about the reboot. We're not gonna do it.
They shouldn't be doing a Harry Potter reboot.
No,
that's all I'll say. It's too soon. It's too soon. It's too soon. This ride is a masterpiece. I know if you're not a Harry Potter fan, maybe it doesn't mean as much to you. I mean, Tim watched the movies, and I think it means a lot to him. So
it's not exclusively an IP thing. I mean, I understand why it is for you, but it's not exclusively an IP thing. It's an immersion thing. It's an atmosphere thing.
Yeah.
It is the whole package from start to finish.
This ride,
coaster.
I would argue, daytime or nighttime doesn't matter.
That's true.
It's not a must do. It's not like I have to do it at night only. It's not I have to only do it during the day. Like anytime you ride it, there's gonna be reason. I think I would argue that there's some things you see better in the day, some things and effects like the lights on the motorcycles you might see better at night. But either way, doesn't matter. It's a great ride. If you're only gonna get on it once that day, doesn't matter what time you do it.
This is to me and I think the only off the top of my head. Although no, never mind. I changed my mind. This is the only perfect dark ride coaster attraction. I think it is the perfect balance of everything. It is a complete package. I was gonna say it's the only perfect attraction, but if you open that up to other types of attractions, I really like Symbolic as a dark ride.
Yeah.
But this,
I think that's too broad to say.
Yeah, this as a dark ride coaster, a themed coaster experience, this is the gold standard. And I also think this is quintessential Universal. I mean, this is what they're capable of. If they do everything to the letter, if they listen to the fans, if they open up to different types of manufacturers, if they think about what's going to be like putting you in the movie, this is what that is. It really does feel like you're a part of the Harry Potter universe for a pretty long ride too. It's not a short attraction. For as long as you wait, the queue is part of the experience because the theming, as Katie said, starts when you join the queue. And getting towards the end of the experience, you're like, that was the best hour and a half I've spent. There's no fast pass, so it's always a long wait. But it's like that was the best hour and a half I've spent since we got here.
Yeah.
And then you have a butterbeer after.
I always remember when we rode it for the first time, we had this really adorable like father and daughter waiting in line like with us. And eventually if you're not gonna say always, but a lot of times when you're stuck in line with someone for a while, they overhear you and you begin to talk. And I remember when we were done with the ride, you know, we all 4 of us got off. We're like, that was so cool. That was so worth the 2-hour wait. Oh my gosh, I want to do it again. That was amazing. And it was just like so much like, it was so satisfying because you've done that before where you've been like, waiting 2 hours to ride 7 Doors Mine
That's
Train,
what I was gonna
like
say.
not worth it. But that one, for whatever reason, it's only like 2.5 minutes long, but it's worth it.
It's longer than that. But how many? I mean, the point is solid. I was gonna say, how many times have you gotten off an attraction and been like, that was worth the 2-hour wait? How many times have you seen a movie and been like, that was worth the 2 hours I sat in the theater? This is a perfect attraction. And I do want to say to Tim's comment here, if you get a robe, you are forced to sit in the
you have to sit inside
passenger seat.
Not saying not do it, but
do it if you want to, but the bike is the better seat.
Yeah.
And everyone agrees that the bike is the better seat for your first time.
The robes are too risky of like whipping out and either
whipping off
or whatever, so they will make you sit in sidecar. But if you need that moment, by all means do it. Just don't be disappointed when they tell you have to sit in sidecar.
And speaking of that and the biker sidecar, which we didn't really talk about, there you can choose depending on who you're with and whether or not they're feeling kind. You can choose to have either the bike.
Tim and I trade off. We have to keep track of who did sidecar last. And then sometimes when it's like my birthday or something, I'll get to ride on the bike.
Yes, you had an unfair advantage last time. But I will also say,
I'm pretty sure it's your turn for bike this time.
If I am in the first, so when we went to Universal the last time, we had 3 people with us. So I was paired off because there's 2 rows of 2. So when you have a group of 3, they'll position you to go through a line that you merge with single riders so that you have someone to fill the gap. There are not going to be any empty seats on this train. I got paired with a single rider, and then I was talking real quickly with the single rider, like, are you so excited to do it? And he's like, yeah, I've never done it before. I was like, what? Switching? No, you got to switch. You got to take the bike. You got to take the bike. And that's like, because everyone, when you do it for the first time, you got to do the bike. The bike is a completely different experience. But the sidecar is still fun AF. It's just not the same experience.
It's not the same level of immersion. Because you do get to hear like the bike like revving, and
you feel like you're in command of that. I mean, even though you're not at all. But
I'm almost like there's people who like put their hands up and stuff, and the whole time I'm on that ride, I'm like,
yep, that's what I do too.
I'm like, no, I'm steering this bike.
It's just fun.
Hagrid depending on me.
It makes you part of the experience.
I love this ride.
So Hagrid's, for all the reasons we've discussed and more, will probably never be displaced as our top themed attraction, our top themed roller coaster, rather. Now, I will say, you go broader and say best themed attraction, or if you go broader the other way and say best overall roller coaster, it does not make number 1 on either of the lists.
Yeah.
But for this particular niche, it is a perfect attraction.
Yeah. Wow, we still talked almost 2 hours.
Yeah, just about roller coasters. Aren't you glad we moved through theme park news really quickly?
I am glad we moved through theme park news really quickly.
All right, we're wrapping up our creator spotlight this week. I wanted to shout out Amber Alert 325, who I started following on Instagram only to find she had a TikTok as well that I think is a little more popular. I don't have a TikTok, so I cannot confirm or deny that. But on Instagram, she is a big-time coaster enthusiast who has a preference for theming, so I thought she would be a great personality to shout out on this one. In case the name doesn't give it away, her name is Amber. It's not just a random Amber Alert inserted.
It's kind of a cute name.
Yeah, I like it. If I was named Amber, that would be my handle too. Also, 325 is for Fury.
Yes, I picked up on that.
Tats and Coasters is another one that it's one of our friends that we made overseas, not in person, but over the coaster community. And through the coaster community, we have made friends with a vlogger and content creator named Emily. She hasn't posted on YouTube in a little bit because she's been focusing on short form content on Instagram and TikTok, but she does have all of those handles. Her YouTube stuff is great. Yes. And she is often invited to parks like Alton Towers, Thorpe Park. She will be, I believe, there for the opening of Hyperia in Thorpe Park, which is their newest coaster and currently the record holder for the tallest in the UK. So if you're interested in seeing what life is like overseas for a coaster enthusiast, she's a great account to follow. Mm-hmm. And universally, Natalia, who I just started following very recently, primarily an Instagram account, focused very much on theming and has a love, obviously, for Universal in particular. So really thought that would be a good shout out for this particular live stream because there's a lot of Universal on our list. And I know we all have shared passion for theming around here. Our next live stream will be on May 21st. And whereas this might not interest all of you, and I recognize that.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking about something that I think is going to be helpful for a lot of creators, and that is social media and how to leverage it. Because when you're on YouTube, you'll find very quickly that Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, Twitter, whatever else, is not going to generate any crossover for you. They're completely different audiences. Right. So something that we started talking about very recently was how can we better our social media presences to try and get some cross-pollination between the accounts and whatnot. And we actually started talking to our friend Frances, who was on the live stream earlier tonight, about how to do that because she is actually a professional content creator who does this for a business. Mm-hmm. So she will be on with us on the next live stream to chat about all of that. Y'all are welcome to join if you'd like to. And we encourage everyone who is a content creator to tune in because there might be interesting information for you.
Might learn something.
And
it's an opportunity to not just hear us yammer for 2 hours.
Oh, we're still going to yammer for 2 hours.
But we'll have someone to diffuse the yammering with.
I don't know. Me and Frances can go off on tangents.
It's true.
It'll be a good time, guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate everyone who tuned in. I hope it will be a great live and not as chaotic as I'm envisioning it. We're super excited to have Frances on. Thank you all so much for joining. We appreciate you all, and we hope that you have enjoyed our walkthrough of coaster rankings. Hopefully, those of you who have not experienced any of those theme coasters on our list will get a chance to experience them sometime soon. Until then, I'm Tim.
I'm Katie.
And every night
is a new adventure.
And we will see you again next time. Bye. Subscribe.